For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show with my good friend Dave Manouk. I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Dr. Ginsburg under the weather. We wish him well and a speedy road to recovery. So he'll be back, hopefully joining us next week. We tried to get Benny back on in his place, but Benny said, mascots don't talk, so he said it in his own special way. I have absolutely anything better to do than spend another Saturday morning with you guys. But we did appreciate Benny joining us last week on the program. In case you missed any of that, it's available on the YouTube channel. We started last Saturday's show off with a bang. Yours truly, Dave Manouk, and Benny, the Winnipeg Jets mascot. I thought that was our best intro of all time, Dave, I must say.
It's up there. It's definitely up there. Having Benny join us in lieu of Ezzy was pretty funny, and I don't know that many people even recognized that it wasn't Ezzy. They may have just thought he was wearing different clothes, but no, it was pretty funny when he or she, we don't know what Benny is, but
Benny's a they.
Whatever. But the point is that Benny joined us, and what
are Benny's pronouns? I don't think we want to have that conversation. It's not important enough.
I'm not particularly interested, to be honest with you. But the fact of the matter is that that was a lot of fun last week. The show flew by. I mean, that was before you knew it, it was over, and then I was, of course, trying to post it on the somewhat difficult internet situation.
The internet there.
Yeah, but we got that posted, and then got lots of content up on the website, and then on, of course, our YouTube channel. So that's and as we've had for the folks all week long, so that's it's been good.
Exactly, content galore because it's training camp, and there's nothing if there's media availabilities after media availabilities after media availabilities. Dave, I guess Happy New Year as well. I guess I should have mentioned that a little bit earlier on. But you've spent a lot of time at training camp this week, and I would say that there's lots of storylines, of course, but I would say that the play of Colby Barlow has certainly been one of the sort of the eye-opening parts of training camp. And we'll delve deep into everything that's been happening at Hockey for All Center. The Jets lost last night in Edmonton. They sent that was their first road exhibition game. They play again tonight, just by the by. But Colby Barlow really has been sort of a standout performer thus far at training camp. So as somebody who's been there probably as much as anybody, certainly more than me, and as much as anybody that covers this team, what have you noticed about Colby Barlow so much?
Trim. If we're in one word, I would say he's
working dirty already.
No, I'm saying he's trimmed out. He's leaner. As to use his word was that he is leaner, and it's noticeable. I mean, it really is. And I'm not suggesting that he was in like heavy or anything like that.
Right.
But I noticed it on the ice. I've said it to our media colleagues when we're watching these skates. I said, Barlow just seems leaner, lighter, like there's just something somewhat like you can see that he had some sort of transformation over the summer. And we talked to him a few days ago. Murat wrote a good article about him the other day. And it's just, I think you see a guy who, he doesn't read social media. And that's probably a good thing for him because,
again, for everybody to do.
Well, for sure. But the point is that, because he said one moment they love you and then the next moment they hate you. And he's not wrong in that regard. And I just think like he's a guy who, Scott Arniel was asked about him yesterday and he talked about his shot and how, using your strengths, Brad Lambert, your strength is your speed. Colby Barlow, your strength is your shot. So you've been seeing it. We saw it in the game against the Oilers last night in Edmonton. Like he was in tight and he had like a man on him and he got off a pretty good shot on Pickard. So, that's his strength, right? And the biggest question mark I had watching him in the AHL a little bit with the Moose last year was, is he going to be able to have the speed element that required he's not going to have the same man strength at 20 as, guys who have been playing pro for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that, you can get to that point. But, the speed element, and I think being obviously like the process that he's undergone this summer to kind of transform himself. I mean, let's be realistic. Like last year at this time when we were talking to him, we knew he was going back to junior, and we'd heard rumblings that he wasn't going to be an Owen Sound anymore, that he was going to request a trade. Sure, he kind of denied it, didn't really deny it, but he didn't really touch on it too much. And then of course he got traded to Oshawa like a minute after he got back to, got sent back to junior, and a very slow start in the first 10 games. I think he had 2 points, started to overcome it throughout the course of the year, and then went on a monster run with the Generals in the OHL playoffs. So had a really good playoffs for them. And you thought to yourself, okay, well, maybe there's something that's working. And we know that the Jets development staff speak to all their prospects, not just the top prospects, but speak to all the prospects, and Mike Keane, Jimmy Roy, those guys, and they're working with them. Mike Keane, I should say, is with the pros, but I think he does a little bit with those guys as well. But Jimmy Roy and that staff, and they basically are working with these guys and trying to tell them that this is what you need to do to take that next step. And I think that with Barlow, whatever was said, again, clearly worked, because Oshawa was a really good team. Let's be realistic, but he obviously raised his game to that next level, specifically later in the season and in the playoffs.
Well,
and
when it matters most, that's really what you want to see. You want to see a guy, and you have to, with the caveat, there's always an adjustment period. It always takes time for guys to sort of get acquainted with their new play, with their new teammates, with their new surroundings, with the new routines and everything along those lines. But you want to see, sort of those steps as you go throughout that adjustment. And you definitely saw that, to your point.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, again, it becomes a function of something that clearly he realized, like, you've got a phenomenal shot, but you're not always going to be on the power play, and where you have a lot more time and space to get it off. So you have to be able to do that at 5-on-5. 5-on-5, and every single kid I talk to, Fabian Wagner, like every guy who comes from junior hockey or whatever they're playing to North America, or not necessarily North America, because Colby Barlow is already here, but I was thinking in the example of Wagner, they talk about how you have so much less time and space, right? And, again, when Barlow's playing junior and he's one of the best players or one of the better players, he's, even if it's at 5-on-5 in the same size rinks, he has more time and space. But you don't have that luxury here. These guys, as I just said, are all pros. And so, it's a really good sign for a prospect that I think some people had soured on. And again, like I said, I didn't watch his game. I'm going to be, as everybody knows, I clip a lot of the highlights, so I can see a lot of the highlights, but I couldn't tell you, how he was playing in the games other than reading what people in Oshawa would write. But the fact of the matter is that clearly something clicked with him. And, a guy who was, I don't want to say middling as a prospect, because, he's a high first rounder, but the fact of the matter is he was kind of, there's a little bit of concern with what was happening this year. And you heard rumblings about whether his name was, whether he was available. And I just say that, what it just seems to have clicked for him. He's transformed his body, which was important because, again, lighter, and anybody knows who's lost weight and gets on skates, when you're not carrying around, or if you have more power because you've changed that into muscle, it just seems to be working. Again, like I said, I couldn't go into the specifics because he didn't go into the details as to what specifically his transformation was, aside from being, quote, leaner. But again, like I said, it just seems to be working, whatever it is that he did.
You get to a point in your playing career where your raw talent can't be the only differentiator. When it comes to taking that next step, you can, raw talent you can win out a little bit strictly on that, at certain levels. But eventually, when you get to be a professional hockey player, you need to ensure, for the most part, there are exceptions to that rule, of course. I mean, Mario Lemieux was never a gym god. I mean, Phil Kessel was never a gym god.
Of course.
But, for the most part, these guys have to be in such a pristine level of physical conditioning in order to take that next step in their career. And I think Colby Barlow at this age has sort of adopted that and has changed his mindset and trained his body and trained himself to be in that position to take that next step. So I ask you this, my friend.
Okay.
Where does he slot, among the, let's say there's an injury to the Winnipeg Jets. We know that the Jets' strength is depth at the forward group, particularly at the NHL level. We know I mean, Barlow's had a good training camp. He's had a good preseason. I don't think any of us necessarily expect that he's going to be a member of the Winnipeg Jets to start on game 1 against the Dallas Stars in a couple weeks' time. But among the Colby Barlow, Brad Lamberts, I mean, maybe Nikita Chibrikov to some extent, where does he rank in terms of sort of your first call-ups in case of an injury sort of a question? Has he maybe jumped ahead of Brad Lambert when it comes to the next young player to make the Winnipeg Jets roster based on what you've seen, based on Lambert's performance, which isn't really getting talked about as much? Maybe that's a good thing. He's not, sort of blowing anyone away. He's just doing what he's supposed to be doing. How would you sort of evaluate that sort of next wave of forwards now vis-a-vis the steps that Colby Barlow's taking?
So I'm going to ask you a question to your question just to get a qualifier here.
Yes.
Are you asking me amongst the young prospects, or are you saying about the next guy to get called up? Because to be honest with you, that to me is like, again, that's more of a Walker Duehr type thing.
Sure. I mean, I'm talking about sort of the impactful player. With all due respect to, Walker Duehr, is a fringe NHL career AHL guy, and that's not
no, but I'm just curious. But
a guy who's going to step in and have an impact on the Jets lineup. Let's say a top 6 guy, because that's really what we're talking about.
Sure.
I mean, a top 6 forward. That's where people want Brad Lambert to be able to step in and do a sort of have a reasonable impact in a top 6 role. That's where he's suited at the NHL level, people imagine. So that would be sort of the what I'm envisioning in this instance.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Brad Lambert's ahead of Barlow just because he's got so much more pro experience, and especially for the top 6. I mean, again, I just don't think you're going to put Colby Barlow in. Again, so much will be determined by what they do on the ice. If Colby Barlow is blowing the doors off of the AHL, then I'm going to look silly saying this because, when they need a call up, it'll be Colby Barlow, not someone else. But I again, just based on the way the Jets have operated for so many years, the tendency is, and really the opportunity is Brad Lambert or Nikita Chibrikov from a forward perspective. Those are the 2 guys that I think they're still going to get. If you need a top 6 guy, those are the guys who are going to get the recall. I mean, again, if it's someone in the bottom 6, then do you really want to recall? I mean, Chibrikov would still be a recall option because we know he's a little Swiss Army in that regard because he can go in really any of those lines and kind of thrive, I would suspect.
And it's a bit of an unfair question I'm asking you. I'll admit that, because we've seen the Jets, when they've needed somebody to go into their top 6, we've seen them take somebody from their bottom 6. That's what the depth at their NHL level allows them to do. We saw Al Iafallo get that bump up to be in the top 6. I mean, so I don't, based on previous activities, it seems unlikely that they would pluck somebody right from the AHL, drop them into a top 6 role at the NHL level, because that hasn't been how they've operated to this extent, so far and recently, which is probably a good thing. It's a testament to the organizational depth, the forward depth that they have, where you don't have to rely on a unproven, untested player to be playing heavy minutes all of a sudden. This isn't a case of, when Adam Brooks got plucked off the waiver wire and put right into the Jets top 6 in the year that Maurice resigned midway through. That was an unpleasant year. This isn't that. The Jets aren't that situation by any stretch of the imagination anymore.
Right. And it wasn't like Brooks was coming right out of Regina and playing in the NHL either, right? So I just don't see it with, look, you've got a group of young talent that's going to be on the Moose, surrounded by really good veterans, and they're going to be learning how to be pros. And I think that is going to be the most, Scott Arniel likes to say, and he said it with respect to Elias Salamonson yesterday. He said, we want him to be a 15-year pro, not a 1-year pro. Sure. Meaning, again, that sort of telegraphs the Jets' attitude with respect to development. And I have no issue with it, of course, but the fact of the matter is that that's just the way they think. They want these guys to be in the best position, not just to help them for 1 game or 4 or 5 games, but to help them in a for the rest of their career, and then be the next wave of players that are replacing some of these guys. So I just don't see it for Barlow. I mean, again, if he makes his NHL debut this season, fine. I'm not saying I couldn't see that, but no, I don't see him right now as an option, unless, like I said, he blows the doors off of the Moose and whatnot. But my expectation is you're going to see, Lambert's going to be the top recall. Chibrikov will be the top recall. Even not necessarily a young prospect because I think he's 25, but Parker Ford, that sort of thing. And before you're going to see like a guy like, Colby Barlow or Braden Yager or Jacob Julian, those guys are more you're learning what it takes to be a pro, and we're going to give you that opportunity. But right. Chibrikov and Lambert are guys who have played pro for a couple of years, and those will be your kind of the next wave of young prospects to take that. My guess is that step and get that opportunity. And again, if they can't run with it, then they'll be sent back or someone else will get that opportunity. But if you asked me the question, which you did, my answer would be that it's going to be Lambert or Chibrikov.
There you go. Like I asked you the question, you didn't sit on the fence, so we do appreciate that in that sense. Keeping with the forward group and the young forward group, or the forwards that we are expecting to be part of the Winnipeg Jets roster, and the second line, we sort of saw that second line of the Winnipeg Jets, that newly formed second line of the Winnipeg Jets, Toews, Perfetti, and Nyquist. We saw them get their first action earlier this week in that preseason game, the second preseason game on home ice. I mean, I don't think that they did anything anybody was wowed by, but I don't think they did anything that anyone was made them nervous. It just seemed like they're again getting up to speed at the NHL level, getting back their skating legs under them. For Jonathan Toews, I mean, the hype has been real. The hype has been talked about all summer long. I'm sure it was a pretty exciting moment for him to be back playing, albeit an exhibition game, but being back playing an NHL game after the health issues of the last couple of years. Him, Perfetti, Nyquist, I think that they're learning from each other. They're sort of shaking the cobwebs out. It's going to be a work in progress for the three of them. I don't know that they're going to be instant chemistry, but I think that there's three very highly intelligent hockey players on that line, and I think they're going to figure it out sooner rather than later, would be my impression.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you have guys who have the quote hockey, I mean, that's the hockey IQ line, if you will, because...
And we talked about that last week when we were at Hockey for All Center, that one of the strengths of this Winnipeg Jets team is going to be their hockey IQ.
Well, for sure. And I don't think nobody is going to confuse these guys with the aforementioned Brad Lambert and speed. But the fact of the matter is that, speed is great, but you have to be able to, do things that like these guys may not be able to get to that same level, but they're going to be able to do things that to offset that, to be able to account for their lack of that foot speed. Although probably should note that Cole Perfetti looks pretty good for a guy who's, again, one of the biggest things we talked about him last year was we needed to see if he could become a driver.
Yeah.
And he did that last year. And we heard from Scott Arneal talking about Perfetti's performance in the playoffs and how he was the guy who had the most, I think he said that he had the most opportunities, even though he wasn't burning his chances in the St. Louis series until, of course, until it mattered in Game 7. But the fact of the matter is, he said that the guy who was getting the most opportunities was Cole Perfetti. And of course, as you said, Drew, in the playoffs, it's one thing to do in the regular season. It's another thing to do in the playoffs. So to me, Cole Perfetti's looked really good. I thought Jonathan Toews has been, for a guy who's been off for 2 years, you're not taking away that intelligence. You're not taking away his, and he was his own harshest critic. No surprise after the game on, was it Tuesday, I think? But after the game, he was maligning his own, or critiquing, I should say, his own play. But
right.
And Gus Nyquist, he's another guy who is probably the biggest question mark for me on that line. Is he going to be able to produce? Because ultimately, you touched on it, and we see the depth. So you're not gonna, if you're the Jets and this line isn't having success, you're gonna give them a little bit of leeway. Of course, based on, we talked about it, 2 shows ago, or 2 shows ago, I think, just in terms of how you have a fairly easy schedule. So because of that, you might have more latitude if you're picking up wins to give these guys a little bit of a leash, if you will. But again, if it's not successful, if there's plenty of depth organizationally to have someone else, take Nyquist's role, if he is the one kind of the anchor to the other two.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So let's, Nyquist. Look, Toews, of course, is unknown how he's going to be able to perform during regular season games. But Gustav Nyquist, a guy who a couple years ago performed very well and then had a very down year last year, and people are hoping he'll be Probably not as good as he was 2 years ago. That would be unexpected, but not as bad as he was last year, somewhere in between. The Jets will probably take that, but let's say he struggles again. Let's say there's struggles involved there. Who's the natural, player to fill that role by your estimation? Because there isn't an obvious one, I would suggest, in the Winnipeg Jets lineup. I mean, yeah, Niederreiter can play up a little bit, but I don't know that that's necessarily a solution there. I mean, it might be just a throw things at the wall and see if any of them stick sort of situation, given that there isn't an obvious top 6 option available for the Winnipeg Jets. Because to be perfectly blunt, Gus Nyquist himself isn't a sure fit top 6 option for the Winnipeg Jets. That's the depth question that, we've been talking about, the depth situation that's been sort of the calling card of this team as of late. So, I mean, to me, that's the big question. I don't think it's going to be resolved in training camp. I think obviously Scott Arniel and the coaching staff are going to give that line a fair bit of leash to see if they can get it going, to see if they can, contribute enough offensively so that it's not a black hole of offense for the Winnipeg Jets. But if it doesn't, I don't know what the clear-cut solution to that is.
Yeah, it's a really good question because, as we heard from Josh Morrissey, I want to say last week, talking about how this team has never had more depth. Now, it doesn't have the same level of elite talent in its top 6. You just don't have that without. And ironically, I say that given the fact that Nyquist had 75 points and Nikolai Ehlers has never hit 75 points in his career. So, I mean, it's clear, and it's not like we're saying he had 75 points 5 years ago, Drew.
Yeah.
He had it 2 years ago.
Right.
And clearly Nashville was a tire fire, not just for Gus Nyquist. That was a tire fire for everyone who was on the Nashville Predators.
Right.
So you sit there and you think to yourself, okay, is he going to be able to regain that magic that he had just from a couple seasons ago? And again, to your point, not 75 points, but maybe he gets to the 50.
If he gave him 50, the Jets would say, thank you very much. No questions asked. They would take that today and run to the bank with it.
Absolutely. So it is an unknown. And again, I'm not going to pillory a guy for one game. I'm just not. Like, it's one game against AHL talent. Look, anybody who watches the AHL, as I know many folks who are in the chat do or listening on the podcast do, it is a much more chaotic game. Add in prospects, it is going to be chaos incarnate. Like even yesterday's game against the Oilers, no McDavid, no Draisaitl, because most teams are saving their veterans for the last few games. So the fact of the matter is, you haven't even seen Connor Hellebuck yet, right? So I mean, so my point is that you're not really. It's very hard to evaluate right now based on games, and I know that the coaching staff are watching these guys in drills. It was funny, like Scott Arniel was asked, I think by Sean Reynolds, who's joining us in under 10 minutes, about what can a young prospect do to kind of get noticed by you, and he said, don't ruin the drills. Be able to successfully do the drills. But the fact of the matter is that's where they're really
freelance too much. Just stay within yourself.
But basically, it's being analyzed and everybody from the Jets. I mean, you watch it when we're at Hockey for All, and you see that everybody, all the brass, are sitting up top watching intently these skates. So they're evaluating these guys, and they're obviously there's the coaching staff on the ice as well. So to me, Drew, it's a function of this team is, I don't know. I mean, maybe you do through a Nikita Chibrikov and a Brad Lambert in if you need some, explosiveness on that line, or if you need some offense on that line, because you're right. Like, could Alex Iafallo do it the way he was asked to be on the first line last year? Possibly. And he most likely, based on the way this team operates, would be a kind of option.
That's the beauty of an Iafallo, a Niederreiter, and a Mesnikov. Those guys' games don't change no matter really what they play, who they're playing with or what role they're playing. They are consistent. They are going to go out there and give you the same thing shift after shift, almost no matter who they're up against. I'm about to sneeze, so I'll let you keep talking about that.
Well, you sneeze away. I'm sure everyone in the chat will wish you, will say you're so good looking if they watch, was it Seinfeld? But I do think that it is a good question, and we'll see. We'll see they're playing tonight against the Calgary Flames here in Winnipeg, and then tomorrow is a day off. But we expect, as Scott Arniel kind of alluded to, they'll be trimming things down and making the roster a little more manageable. They won't do it. Some folks are saying today, but they're not going to do it today because they want to see. They want to get through the game tonight and see if there are any guys who get injured. So they're not going to sign players on waivers yet.
We've seen injuries. I mean, look at the Florida Panthers. Look at Sasha Barkov. He's, imagine, just a simple routine thing, and then your entire season. Yeah. I mean, not to say that their season is gone because that would be too dramatic, but all of a sudden the Florida Panthers are without Sasha Barkov until at least April. I mean, in a blink of an eye.
Well, and thankfully, because there's a salary cap imposed on the playoffs, which I'm 100% in favor of, you can't offset it and say, oh well, we'll get someone else to replace him, and then we'll have a bonus, as we've seen so many teams get away with in the last 5 years. But yeah, no, Drew, it is a good question, and I do think that there's that big the opportunity word, right? Like a guy like Brad Lambert, here's your opportunity, and don't get me wrong, again. 8 years between him and Nikolai Ehlers. So I'm not suggesting that Brad Lambert is going to replace Nikolai Ehlers. And I would not judge him based on his year last year, because I think it's hard to just look at his, there's more to it than just looking at his points totals, seeing a decrease from the year prior and being like, oh, he must have had a down year. The entire Moose team had a down year. It was almost Chase DeLeo dark days in 2015 and 16, as he would talk about it.
What about Chase Jr. though? Was there a dog around the team last year? Chase Jr. brought a lot of joy to the team.
That is true. I don't believe there was a Chase Jr. Although we can always find out, because I don't know if he signed again, but he went over to Europe and then he came back and was with Milwaukee last year. So maybe we'll see him a little bit more frequently in the AHL. But Drew, I think it comes down to we're going to see, especially, I think what we'll do is we'll judge based on the game. Like the Calgary game that's the 4th one. Then Minnesota is the 5th one on Tuesday. And then when's the last one? Is that in Minnesota on Friday, maybe?
It sounds right. I mean, I'll be honest. I really...
No, I understand. I mean, most people aren't
preseason games come and go, and I don't really pay much attention to when they happen, but they do come and go. I see that our buddy Sean Reynolds is joining us backstage, so we're going to go commercial free for the first hour.
Wow.
No, is he saying? Sean will say either he's ready or soon.
I don't think he's ready. Put his mic away. So why don't we go to commercial break?
Okay. Well,
let Sean get organized, Drew. Come on.
Okay. Well, let Sean get organized, then we'll come back, and Sean Reynolds is going to join us here Saturday morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Manouk, Sean Reynolds up next. Don't go anywhere. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Bottom of hour number 1, Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk with you. As I mentioned, Ezzy Ginsberg a little under the weather. He'll hopefully be back to join us next week. Before we bring Sean in, a couple of housekeeping notes. A reminder, we're giving away 4 tickets. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 4 tickets to the home opener against the Dallas Stars. Get to our Instagram page. Get to our Facebook page. You'll see the post. It's right there. It's simple to enter. All you have to do is answer the very difficult trivia question, true or false. The best place to be after each and every Winnipeg Jets game, and again on Saturday mornings, is the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. True or false?
Followed by Kenny and Rennie, of course, Drew.
Followed by Kenny and Rennie, of course, as well. Answer that question, and you'll be entered into the draw to win 4 tickets to the home opener. The contest closes at noon today, so you have 2.5 hours left to go ahead and jump on our social media and answer that question. And Dave, a quick update. What's up with the website? I know it says under maintenance.
Yeah, we're just fixing some things up and getting some things ready for the season. We are also in preseason mode, so we should be back up and running by hopefully later today or tomorrow.
There you go. So that's why it says under maintenance. Don't worry, we haven't given up on the website altogether. It's just under maintenance. Sean Reynolds joins us on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Our good friend, Kenny and Rennie, Sportsnet, all of those good places is where you can find him on a regular basis. How was the summer, good friend? I haven't seen you in a little while.
It's good. Yeah, it was. Feels like every year it gets a little bit tighter. You know what? I've got it broken down to like you basically get like 8 or 9 weekends. So you better make sure you do a good job at those weekends or leave them totally empty and then just do nothing. That's where I'm getting to it, the do nothing stage of life. I'm pretty good at it.
That's a good, it's good to have goals. And if your goal is to do nothing, that is a goal nonetheless. Anyways, thrilled to have you join us, talk about the Winnipeg Jets, talk about training camp. You know, we're into the grind of it, I would say. You know, at this point in time, it's getting probably old for these guys. They're ready. They're getting ready. They're eager to start the season. But nonetheless, they still have about another 10 days or so to go before they kick things off on that Thursday against the Dallas Stars. What's been your do you have a main takeaway from training camp so far? Is there something that's jumped out at you more than other things that you've been sort of impressed about or, really sort of piqued your interest when you've watched this Jets team so far?
Well, my main takeaway is that the Jets have just kind of arrived to the kind of team they want to be. And they did it. I mean, not this year. They did it last year and probably the year before that. You go back and think to that time that, they'll always go in and they seem to strike out on UFAs for the most part during the off seasons. And then we had that one year where Vladislav Namestnikov was coming in, probably going to be the second line center. And everyone was, woe is me. And what we found is the Jets have just really found a collection of players that fit what the Jets are, their identity. They've made it clear they're a defense first team. Commitment to that defense should turn to offense. They've been playing that, practicing what they preach for a number of years now, and it works. So when you get to a camp like this, because the Jets are so identified in who they are and how they're trying to play, that you can just really see they don't need to be where a lot of these other teams are, where they're going and getting big unrestricted free agents that you add them in. And now you need to figure out how your team fits around that. Like, think about it. I know he wasn't a UFA, but Dallas goes and gets Mikko Rantanen, and it took a little bit of time, but you need to, now this is such a good player. You kind of need to shape and fit the system around him. The Jets year after year now, you can just see they go and it's basically a plug and play, right? They want a little more defensive depth. So they go get some guys who on other teams don't look like, maybe they don't even fit on that team anymore, kind of got spit out of the bottom of that roster. But that's what the Jets on defense are trying to do, is fill out the bottom of their roster and have a whole bunch of NHL options, which is a good thing. You think of certain teams, I'll bring up the Dallas Stars again. That was one of their issues going into the season last year, is they had a fairly good top four, and then after that they really fell off defensively. The Jets have all that kind of depth there. Nikolai Ehlers goes out. They're trying to fix that by committee, plug in Jonathan Toews, plug in Gustav Nyquist, and have those players maybe be the sum of those two parts be greater than the whole of the loss of Nick Ehlers. But I mean, this is the intrigue would not be a word you would use to describe the Winnipeg Jets training camps, because the writing's on the wall for who's making these teams, who's not making these teams. The one thing I kind of find interesting, if you remember going back to last season and Brad Lambert, there was a certain segment of the fan population that if Brad Lambert doesn't make this team, hat on the ground, and this is a massive problem. This team isn't, paying homage to its youth. I don't think anyone's doing that this year, and it's a pretty good sign that the Jets did the right thing last year, that Brad Lambert wasn't ready, and that so you take a look at that. Probably the player you're looking at this year is Elias Salomonson. Jets are giving him every opportunity to showcase what he can do. But I think what he needs to do, because I just mentioned the Jets have so much depth, he essentially needs to not just make this team. He needs to carve out a spot on that third pairing and make one or a number of those depth defensemen that the Jets have expendable, right? Because you don't want Salomonson coming up and sitting in the press box. We see how that's worked out for Ville Heinola and Logan Stanley. It's not a good path. They want him to take the Dylan Sandberg path. What that means is you go from the AHL, you jump in, you carve out a spot, you're in the lineup in the NHL. And I just think with the depth that they have, unless he goes out and kicks an established NHL player out of his spot, it's not happening, and we pretty much know what the roster is.
Sean, I'm pretty sure you asked Scott Arniel this question this week, and I thought his answer was interesting, because I think you said, with this team having the defensive acumen that they come into this training camp with, is that kind of nice in the sense that you don't necessarily have to reteach it? And I thought his answer was interesting, because he basically said, no, in fact, we still start at that is going to be our core. That is what we had success with for the last couple of years, and we are going to continue to reinforce that being our successful model. I just thought it was an interesting answer, because you have a guy who's like saying, look, you 2 years in a row, you could rest on your laurels, but they don't look like they're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a system that demands extreme buy-in, and it's a system that demands extreme effort. And so you set the tone for the season in training camp, and the tone that's being set is don't take a step back. We're trying to get even more refined with this system. And the other part of it too is I think when you've got, it's not like the Jets aren't having any turnover at all. They've got a number of players who are going to come in who are going to play, an important role. Gus Nyquist and of course Jonathan Toews being part of that. So it's almost your job, if you're Mark Scheifele or Kyle Connor, and I know Adam Lowry's not out there, but the established veteran players, to go in and really hammer home that system in training camp, so that the other players who are coming in and trying to pick it up are able to kind of watch and see, this is the standard that we set. They're the flag bearers in this. They need to show this is what it takes, the level of intensity that it takes, the level of detail that it takes to succeed at this. And the one thing that we do know, and I mean, guys, I think we had conversations about it in the past, but the Jets, in my take, are extremely reliant on that system. It's their superpower, but if you can use it against them the way I think Jim Montgomery really did in that Blues series, and find ways to make that system break down, then all of a sudden there's a lot of space in that system. So there's no room, if you're the Winnipeg Jets, to not have 23 men locked in and fully achieving that system, because once one guy doesn't know what he's doing, then the next guy's in the wrong spot and the next guy's in the wrong spot. So it takes complete and total team buy-in. So it makes sense that the Jets' first order of business at this training camp is to reestablish that buy-in.
Sean Reynolds, our guest Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. You mentioned the series against St. Louis, Sean, and it took the Manitoba Miracle for the Jets to get past the Blues. You talked about Jim Montgomery sort of broke down the Jets system to some extent in that series. Do you think that the Jets maybe learned more about themselves in that series versus St. Louis than they did in the defeat against the Dallas Stars?
Oh, 1,000%. Great question. I was just on Calgary Sportsnet radio yesterday, and it was funny because the question asked to me was premised by the idea that, the Jets weren't a tough team, and that was exposed in that St. Louis series. And I said, well, sorry, but I reject the premise of the question. Do I think the Blues were the tougher team in that series? I do. Like the way that they played, that series was a rough and tumble banger series because the Blues made it so. Mm-hmm. But the Jets found a way to survive that series. And I don't know about you guys. I can't remember the last time I saw that physical of a series, that much of a war. We're hearkening back to like 90s, early 2000 hockey there. And the fact of the matter is the Jets, not like, hey, the Jets got their licks in. Jordan Kyrou, I'm sure he'll never forget who Logan Stanley is, right? And one of their the bottom pair defensemen got knocked out of the series in Game 6. Both Schenn brothers walked away with what I believe they were saying was broken ribs in the exact same spots. Like, you had to be a warrior to survive that series. And I think what the Jets walk away from in that series is, the fact that they came in and never gave up. Did it take a miracle? I think that the Nemestikov goal before the Cole Perfetti goal is the true miracle. It's not even a shot. It's a pass across the ice that redirects off of two different pads and into the back of the net. This was a miracle. This was the hand of the hockey gods coming down and tapping the Jets on the shoulder. But they only get in that position because they don't give up. So in a series where they were tested, their mettle was tested physically, they endured it, they survived it, they kept going in that series and got through. I think those are the kind of things that now become part of their DNA. And the next time they get into a series like that, they're like, guys, I know this is rough. We've been here before. We've survived it, and we've moved on. So, yeah, the Dallas Stars series, I think, and you heard Kevin Cheveldayoff talk about it. It said it came down to a kick here, a kick there. I think the Jets thought they had a raw deal.
A propelling of a puck, if you will.
Yes, and made a couple mistakes here and there. Probably if they get as good a goaltending in that series from Connor Hellebuck as the Dallas Stars got from Jake Ottinger, they win that series as well. I actually thought the Jets were the better team in that series and didn't come out of it. So I agree 1,000%. There were more learning lessons, more takeaways, and more reasons to add it into your DNA that you can now survive those things coming out of that Blues series.
Sure. The old story from Gretzky that when he saw the Islanders after they won the cup against the Oilers, they were too beat up and too tired to celebrate. And that's sort of what it takes to get to that level.
Yeah. But by the way, just a side note, have you heard Brian Trottier went on the record after that and said they didn't see it that way, that they don't remember that. They remember celebrating. And he said, if anything, we may have known that they were walking by the dressing room and didn't want to rub it in their face. So we got a little bit quiet. So it's funny that Gretzky story is always out there, but Trottier contests it and says that the New York Islanders were just fine. Yeah.
Well, Sean, this player didn't play when Trottier was around, but have you thought? What are your early impressions of Jonathan Toews? Of course, there was all that excitement when he signed back in July, but nobody had seen him skate. Nobody really knew what kind of condition he'd be in. We're 10 days into camp now. He's played the preseason game. Again, we're not going to judge him based on this because, of course, the whole point of what I think Kevin Cheveldayoff said to us is don't worry about right now. Don't worry about the point totals. Worry about what's happening in March and April, and for them, hopefully May and June, that sort of thing. But from your perspective, just early on, what are sort of your early impressions, takeaways on Jonathan Toews?
Yeah, so watching him on the ice, he's snapping the puck around. You can see he moves the puck really well. His hands look good to me. That's important because I do think, like when your legs go, it's a matter of working your legs back into shape, to a degree. Once you get older, sometimes there's just a capacity they don't reach, and that's clearly a question with Jonathan Toews. But if your hands go, I think it can take some time to get those back. So his hands look good. So clearly that tells me he's been working off ice and he's getting places. His hockey smarts are clearly on display. Watching he and Gus Nyquist and Cole Perfetti on a line, I'm watching them. You see Mark Scheifele's line goes out and you see that the clear chemistry that they've built together, and there's a comparison between those two, and you see, okay, clearly that line's not there. It's going to take a little bit of time. Those are three players trying to figure each other out. So I see a little element of that in there. When I took a look at now I'm on the record as saying, I think this is going to work. I think it's going to work out really good with Jonathan Toews. When I saw that first preseason game, and I know he catches a guy on a back check one time, and everyone's holding that up as an example that he's got the legs. And I saw a player that in that game, kind of looked like he was right at the level of that game. And that's not necessarily a great thing. That's mostly a game that doesn't have a lot of NHL players in it. And I thought his speed, he almost seemed to be a little bit behind the play for the vast majority of that game, right? So it's the first time that I ever thought to myself, ooh, maybe, just maybe, Jonathan Toews won't have the speed to do what he wants to do and be Jonathan Toews at the NHL level. And then I always remind myself, this is a player that was always ready to go in Game 7 of an elimination game in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't know that Jonathan Toews feels the need to show everything that he has in an early preseason game before the season, right? You're talking about an established veteran. He knows what's at stake. He's not trying to impress anyone. He's not worried about Sean Reynolds in the press box thinking that he's up to speed for the NHL or not. He's interested in doing the things he needs to do to get to where he needs to be. So, I mean, I see that and I look and I think that's still a question mark, and clearly it is. Is Jonathan Toews going to have the speed after leaving the game the way that he did the last number of years to come back and compete and to execute the Jets system, which is a high energy, high level system? Those questions still remain. I still believe he's able to get there. And the one thing is, I mean, General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff and head coach Scott Arniel, they've both said the same thing. The true measure of the value of picking up this player is not going to be felt until the playoffs. So it's just another one of these things that Winnipeg Jets fans are going to have to wait for. Last year, we talked about it. They got out to that super hot start, and everyone was thinking, okay, is this proof that they're going to do really well in the playoffs? Well, we didn't get that until the playoffs, and they almost got knocked out in the first round. So you take a look at this. This is the Jets. Everything is about the playoffs and playoff success, and this is just another one of those questions that will not be answered until that time.
Sean, just a quick follow-up with respect to Toews and his impact on the ice. We've heard so many players, whether they're veterans or young guys, say about, both on and off the ice, what sort of impact he's having. But I just thought it was really interesting to watch after skate had ended 2 days ago and see Braden Yager working on faceoffs with Jonathan Toews. And I thought to myself, and we know that Yager had told us the week prior that his dad said, always watch 87 being Sidney Crosby and 19 being Jonathan Toews. And I thought, what a huge thing for an organization to be able to have a guy like, a top prospect in Yager getting a chance to learn from Toews on the ice. And Yager said that was his motivating factor, trying to make the team. We know he's not going to make the team. We know he'll be with the Moose. But the idea that he's getting this experience with a player of his caliber, having already received similar when he was in Pittsburgh with Sidney Crosby, just how impactful do you see that being? That sort of intangible that won't have an effect, obviously, for this year, but could have effects for years to come.
Well, because you bring up Sidney Crosby, I'll use that as an example. If you remember Sidney Crosby's first year in the league, Mario Lemieux was still playing. Mm-hmm. Now, he doesn't make it through that entire season, and he ends up retiring, right? So the crossover between those two players on the ice isn't huge. We know that he stayed with Mario Lemieux and his family.
He still lives with him.
Yeah. But there was a time when both those players were on the ice together, and he got to see what made him special. And Mario Lemieux in that last season, it wasn't he stepped away from the game because he was like, man, I'm terrible. I'm out of here. I had him in a pool that year, and he was doing just fine for me until he retired and then got no points after that, right? So, but he was still an impact player. He was still someone you could pick up from maybe his practice habits or maybe just watching greatness unfold before you, right? So there's always that level of importance there. So I always say, like, there's potential here for bringing a player in like this to alter the course of your franchise, because you're talking about an all-time player in Jonathan Toews. And if you're able to learn and take any of the things that he does and have it rub off on the younger players in your organization, that's going to be a win. I was warned by a player recently who said to me, that's all fine and dandy, but one thing that you'll notice over the years is when there's been these examples of players who are older players who really bring the younger players along, all those players can still play. He said what happens in a dressing room is if those established players come in and they're struggling and they're not getting anywhere, there's a tendency for the mindset of the team to move on from that player to what is working, right? So it's one thing to say, you know, if that were the case, then every team would go and hire a former star player and have them just hanging around so that you could go talk and learn everything you needed to know from that star player. That's not what they do, because in the end, when you go to battle with the players in your dressing room, you look to your generals who are leading and who are getting it done out on the battlefield. So, I mean, I'm sure there's value, and I'm sure there's always something you can learn from Jonathan Toews. I take the word of this player who talked to me about this ahead of you know, a lot of things, because they've been there before. They're saying, listen, you can't just show up and pay lip service to it. Jonathan Toews is going to have to do it, to execute it, in order to be that guy that people look and say, okay, this is the way.
Sean Reynolds, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. Sean, this player has seen his point totals diminish over the last 3 years. His possession numbers have improved over the last 3 years, though. Morgan Barron is who I'm talking about. How much more meat, if any, is there on the bone that is Morgan Barron vis-a-vis his usage by the Winnipeg Jets?
I don't think it's much different than where it is right now. Like this, the problem, depth is great. The problem when you are in and surrounded by that depth is the lack of, or the more depth you have, the less opportunity quite often there is. Like Morgan Barron isn't playing his way onto the top line of the Winnipeg Jets. Let's just be honest about that. It's not happening. It's not happening on the second line either. So one of the ways that they've tried to create more opportunity for him is to get him moved into the middle and playing in the middle. And he's done really well at that. Morgan Barron's a guy who every time he's been given an opportunity, he's slayed that opportunity. But when Adam Lowry comes back, my guess and what I expect to happen is that Vladislav Nemesnikov is going to go down to that fourth line as the center. Because he's shown he can play that role on both a scoring line to a degree and a little bit more of a rough and tumble fourth line. So maybe Morgan Barron's opportunity lies in continuing to be the right kind of player to get the possession numbers that you're talking about, but relying on a more offensive center like Vladislav Nemesnikov to create opportunities and then start regaining and building those point totals, and then being ready for another time when the depth of this team starts to get a little bit more challenged. Maybe that's when he moves up the lineup, but if he's moving in the middle, he's not supplanting Adam Lowry. Maybe there's more opportunity at center if the team decides, okay, we're going to put him in the middle ahead of Vladislav Nemesnikov because, he's maybe a little bit more of the future. I don't think that's going to happen because I think they pay homage to Vladislav Nemesnikov, who's done everything they've asked of him in those roles. I mean, I think the only opportunity happens if things don't work out with Jonathan Toews or his body's not able to go. Vladislav Nemesnikov needs to move back up to the second line, and then Morgan Barron goes and gets onto that fourth line at center. But for me, I see his role being the exact same for the most part. It has been last year and the year before. And so what that means is your opportunity that you're given is to refine yourself in that role, become better and better and better at it, tilt the scales a little bit harder when you're on the ice, and maybe do it on the scoreboard by scoring more often.
Is he still ahead of Pearson or Koepke, when the Jets are fully healthy down the middle? Is he still one of your 12 forwards though? Yeah, because I mean, he's one of the guys I think that is just like Dylan Samberg, the path that he had there, and the path that eventually Elias Solomonson is going to travel. Like the Jets they identify certain guys who are
their guys, and then those guys get their opportunity. Mark Scheifele was one of them. Kyle Connor was one of them. When Patrick Laine was here, if you notice, the opportunities for Kyle Connor were greater because the Jets identified at that time he was one of their guys. Adam Lowry has always been one of those guys. There's certain guys, Josh Morrissey, clearly one of those guys, and Sandberg, the most recent, I would think. But the Jets will identify certain guys that are Winnipeg Jets that they brought into the league, and they believe in this guy, and that guy is going to get every opportunity. I do believe that Morgan Barron is one of those guys. Jets fans will be very frustrated with some of the players that weren't those guys, the Nick Petans, the Sami Nikus, the Ville Heinola for the most part. But I see Morgan Barron as being one of those guys that when there's an opportunity, the Jets have him in the queue. He's got his number at the doctor's office, guys. It's just a time, the time for those red numbers to flip to that number.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go to one of those guys you just mentioned, because my question for you, and it's a difficult one, and I understand because we've still got 3 games to go before the preseason is over, and so obviously in training camp injuries could take place. But for the most part, we seem to know that the top 4 D men are established as who they are. Then it seems to be that you've got Hayden Fleury, Luke Schenn, Colin Miller. That's your next tier. So that takes you to 7. Now, we know that last year Scott Arniel didn't really want to carry 8. They did, but I think he would have preferred to have had 7 if he had his choice. But they went with 8. And again, we don't know what it's going to look like, Sean, when that Dallas game comes on October 9th. But from your perspective, what is going to happen with Logan Stanley and Ville Heinola? The presumption, of course, is that Elias Salomonsson, who we've mentioned, who we know is going to be a very good NHL player eventually. But as Scott Arniel said to us yesterday in the scrum, we want him to be a 15-year guy, not a 1-year guy, which to me telegraphs that he's going, and of course his waiver exemption. So on the presumption that Elias Salomonsson doesn't carve out a role, how do you see things, and if he does, then that's another question I guess we could ask. But from your perspective, how do you see this playing out with Ville Heinola and Logan Stanley?
Well, the why of them carrying 8 defensemen last year, in my opinion, was that they wanted Logan Stanley there to help handle the rough stuff up front. Okay, so we go back a year ago and you see that they lose Brendan Dillon and he's gone. It's my belief that Adam Lowry made it clear that, hey, I'll continue playing the role that I play for this team. You need me to stand up against Ryan Reeves at the right time, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it probably more often than a player like I am should be doing it. But I'm not fighting 5 more times in a year, 6, 7 more times in a year because we lost a guy and didn't replace him. So for me, the why of Logan Stanley getting the opportunities he had last year was exactly that. They needed another guy that for specific games that they thought would be rough and tumble. It's why they started the playoffs in a rough and tumble environment with Logan Stanley before they moved on and found other players for that season. But the role that Logan Stanley can play for you is you put a big 6'7" guy out there who will fight and who will do that. You saw it. He was in the middle of it yesterday in that preseason game. So I see it playing out very similarly because I don't know that of the players that they brought in that they're going to be the kind of guys who go out and handle that rough stuff the way that an Adam Lowry could or can, the way that Brendan Dillon did for this team and the way that Logan Stanley did for this team. Was Logan Stanley as good at it as Brendan Dillon? Nowhere near, but he's a big body who's able to stand in for the rough stuff and be part of it. So I'll just make it a short answer, Dave. I see it kind of playing out that same way. I think Ville Heinola is going to be the odd man out, but I think they keep Logan Stanley around because that's a purpose they serve or that he serves, that the team is short on in that situation. And now, especially with Adam Lowry out of the lineup for the first little bit here, you're really deficient in that area. So, and I know I said this off the top, team toughness is, I think, a little bit different than that kind of, let's get at it and drop the gloves kind of toughness. Jets don't want to be put in a situation where they're getting bullied or pushed around or have a team try and take advantage of that. And that's why they've had players like that to play the role in the past. And that's why I see that the Jets see more value. I'm saying, I don't even think the Jets say, well, I think Logan Stanley's a better player than Ville Heinola. But there's a role right now that Logan Stanley can play that Ville Heinola can't. So Ville Heinola shouldn't be targeting Logan Stanley and saying, I need to be ahead of him in the depth chart. If Ville Heinola wants to stick around, he needs to look at Fleury or Colin Miller and say, I'm ahead of them in the depth chart. That's just the role that he's got to play. And that's the way I see the whole thing playing out.
Last one for you, Sean. Luke Schenn. Sorry. Brain went there. Yeah. Luke Schenn back with the Jets. Family's back here now. Probably more comfortable, more familiarity with it. What are you expecting from a guy like Luke Schenn this year as he enters sort of the first full season as a member of the Winnipeg Jets? You mentioned the physicality in that St. Louis series. You mentioned the physicality that Logan Stanley brings to the Jets lineup. Now that you have Luke Schenn for a full year, he also brings a heavy dose of that physicality. So what are you sort of anticipating for a guy like Luke Schenn, who most people think is going to start on that third pairing right side with Hayden Fleury, at least for game one against Dallas?
I think he's going to be on the load management program. I think they're going to want him out and they're going to want him playing, to the best of his abilities on the nights that he can play, and to ensure that they can get him at his best. They're going to be moving him in and out of the lineup. I really do see that third pairing with, barring any injuries or anything like that, being a little bit of like a rolling rotation of Fleury and Miller and Schenn in that situation. So again, and you bring up a good point. He's a guy who can be used in that respect. I don't think at his age he wants to be out there being the sheriff, and dropping the gloves at will. I think he'll do it, and he'll do it, selectively. I don't think he wants to be doing it a whole bunch of stuff, but he's capable of doing it. And he's a big, strong, scary guy who can handle himself. So it's a good role that he can play. The Jets, there's a reason the Jets are collecting all the depth that they have, and we've already seen them executed over the last number of years. How they use that depth is they do use it. It's not two guys locked into that third pairing and then you never see the other guys. They really do roll guys in and out. So I think Luke Schenn is a guy that has a ton of value. If you take a look at this, he's got Stanley Cup pedigree. One of the things the Jets obviously targeted this offseason, and let's not just say offseason, roll right back to before the trade deadline. Last year at training camp, the Jets had 0 Stanley Cups on their roster. They've got 6 now. And Luke Schenn has 2 of them. Jonathan Toews has 3 of them. Pearson has 1 of them. They're clearly, Jets got older, guys. I think from what I've seen by the numbers, the Jets are going to be one of, if not the oldest team on average in the NHL this year. And that's what happens when you add Gus Nyquist in his mid to late 30s and Jonathan Toews in his mid to late 30s and Pearson, and you add Luke Schenn at the trade deadline last year. The Jets got older. So what that tells you is that the Jets right now are prioritizing experience, and they're prioritizing the championship experience and trying to use that leadership to figure out this question that's plagued them. How do you get deep into the playoffs over the years? They've clearly gone in this direction to try and solve that problem. So Luke Schenn will be important, an important role in trying to help them solve that problem. I think he'll be utilized, though, in a manner that is done so that he can be his best on the nights when he plays, and maybe take off some other nights to make sure that he can be at his best.
Championship pedigree is what we've been striving for. Fortunately, Sean Reynolds brings that to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on this Saturday morning. 22 Jets games with our friends at Sportsnet this year, if I'm not mistaken. Something right around that number, right?
I'm very selfish, so I only look at the games that I'm doing. So yeah, there's going to be some in with the Oilers in Edmonton and Calgary and things like that. But I've got the blinders on. It's all about Sean Reynolds, baby. So.
Love it. Nothing wrong with having that out of control ego. We appreciate it. Sean, thank you, buddy. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Always appreciate you joining us this morning on the program.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Our pleasure.
Thanks,
Have a
Sean.
good one. There you go. Sean Reynolds, our good friend, joining us this morning here On the Rennie, exactly. Kenny and Rennie, they're going to start up soon. I assume that they're going to they usually do some sort of pop-up preview at some point.
Yeah, they'll probably do a season preview, I would imagine, before October 9th, the first game.
You never know when those two guys are just going to pop up. We do Saturday mornings. That's locked and loaded.
We're consistent.
Yeah, but Kenny and Rennie, sometimes it's a Thursday afternoon at 3:30, and all of a sudden they go live. You get the little alert on your phone that they're going live. You got to love, they keep you on your toes is what they do. But of course, they also do the post-game show following our post-game show. That is going to get started in just a couple of weeks' time. It was 2 weeks from 2 days ago. So Thursday, October the 9th, the first edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. And that afternoon, 12 noon, a game preview will be live at City Place in the food court. Look for the giant poster. It's already up there. It says Illegal Curve. We're going to be there live on location Thursday, October 9th, getting you set for the Jets and the Dallas Stars. We're looking forward to that. And then the post-game show will start right after that game concludes.
Drew Bardot, who actually messaged me on Instagram, wants to know, when is the first IC watch party at BP?
Good question. We need to figure all that jazz out. So that's something that's on my list. My problem is that my list never gets smaller. It just keeps growing and growing and growing, but it's on my list. So I've
got a list too. Comment is telling me I got to get the fight, Tyrell Bowers fight from yesterday up. I tell Tyrell, and I know he's in.
Except he wants it on the website. The website's under maintenance.
The website's under maintenance comment, but I can use social media still. So I'll see if I can get the. I was gonna get it. I meant to do it last night and I forgot. So
get your little.
I'll clip.
People clip with hair. Dave clips videos. It's all good nonetheless.
Hey, I got to get some Victor Klingsell videos clipped. The Jets 2025 draft pick. He's been tearing up the Swedish league over there. So I think I saw in the comments he had another 3 points last night. So he's good. He's doing well. Well.
I'm glad you knew that, because I can assure you I didn't. But that's
he was my prospect to watch. I like the kid's got moxie. So just remember these words at 10:06 a.m. on the 27th of September that I said that Victor Klingsell is a prospect to watch. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, I'll tell you who else has moxie. That's Craig Button. He's set to join us at the bottom of hour number 2. So even though we're 6 minutes past the top of the hour, we'll go to break. We'll come back. We'll start hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, much more Jets talk to come, along with our good friend Craig Button. Don't go anywhere.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumor's incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back. Saturday morning. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, 10 minutes past the top of the hour. Big thanks. Got to give a shout out. This is a cold brew from Sheepdog Brewing. Big thanks to my buddy Sean from Sheepdog Brewing. Hooked me up with some cold brew that's getting the cold coffee to balance out the hot coffee coursing through my veins. So I'm really hyped and hyper and jittery for the rest of the day. Big thanks to the good folks at Sheepdog Brewing for helping me out and getting me with some cold brew coffee. If you are heading to the Winnipeg Jets game tonight, you're going to be seeing some NHL talent. The Jets' top line of Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde. And second line of Perfetti, Toews, and Nyquist. They are on the ice for morning skate for the Winnipeg Jets. The top two pairs of defensemen are also there, Morrissey and DeMello, Dylan Samberg, and Neil Pionk. So there is going to be some NHL talent on the ice tonight. In addition, Nikita Chibrikov, Braden Yeager, Walker Dewar, Fabian Wagner, Parker Ford, Jarrett Anderson Dolan make up your forwards. And also you have on the back end Kyle Clegg with Luke Schenn, Dylan Anhorn.
Cale Clegg.
Cale Clegg. Sorry, not Kyle. Cale. Kyle's his lesser-known brother. Cale Clegg and Luke Schenn and Dylan Anhorn and Colin Miller. Goaltenders tonight, Eric Comrie and Thomas Milich. So that is the line rushes, at least currently, from the Winnipeg Jets morning skate, the final of their three-game exhibition home portion of the schedule taking place tonight, Saturday night. Doubleheader, if you will, as you got the Bombers in action starting at 2 o'clock. Zach Caleros returning behind center, under center for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They are playing the Tiger Cats of the Steel City of Hamilton. So that's lots going on in the city.
It'll be a beautiful day for it. I think it's 25 degrees. So
yeah, I'll be there. I'm taking Sam to the game, so looking forward to that. He's a big football guy.
So go say hi to Sam in the Rum Hut. He'll be in the Rum Hut.
He comes in case he comes wearing his bomber gloves. His receiver gloves in case the team has any injuries. He's probably more of a shifty Canadian slot back sort of player. Doesn't really do well out high pointing the ball because he's 8 years old. But if you need somebody who can sort of climb under the legs of the taller players, then Sam will be your guy. We're looking forward to that a little bit later on. And then of course our friends at Rumors Comedy Club, they have two shows tonight. The first show sold out. JP Sears. That's his fifth straight sellout. There's a few tickets left for the 9:45 p.m. show as well. So there is a lot going on in the fair city of Winnipeg for your choices of entertainment today. Would love that.
Drew, do you plan on wearing a black jersey to the game?
Do I plan on wearing a black jersey to the Bomber game?
Yes.
I don't. But
I believe that is because Paul Friesen of the Winnipeg Sun wrote an article saying that that's how people are protesting the new rules. Apparently it was a Canadian in Houston started he's not happy.
I've never seen so
Brent
much.
Bellamy,
architect,
Winnipeg architect. He has a T-shirt made up that is protesting the rules. So there we go.
I mean, with all due respect to everyone and their opinions, I mean, I love the CFL. I'm a huge Bomber fan, season ticket holder, blah, 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 blah. The hand-wringing and the belly aching over these changes, you would think that they've done something that's absolutely the most revolutionary thing that they could have ever done. I think it's a little much if you ask me, the over-the-top complaining with regard to the changes that they've made. Innovate or die, as the old business
like we did by getting rid of Ezzy on today's show.
That's right. We replaced Ezzy with Benny. That is innovation. And then we replaced Ezzy entirely with nobody. Further innovation. That's what we're doing when it comes to Illegal Curve. The CFL is trying to do similar. I think that I'm okay with the changes, is what it boils down to. And a good point by our buddy Doug. It is orange shirt game at the Bomber Stadium. So if you're going to the game tonight, maybe leave the black at home. Be supportive, be an ally. Orange shirt day at the Bomber game today against the Hamilton Tiger Cats as well. So there you go. That's the recap of everything that's going on in the city of Winnipeg tonight. Lots going on. Exactly. Lots going on is what I'm saying. Back to the Winnipeg Jets. Back to the the idea I want to talk about that I mentioned with Sean, and sort of the idea of the Jets being, I don't know that they were bullied against the St. Louis Blues, but the St. Louis Blues certainly had an MO, and I think the Blues knew that the only way that they could be competitive in that series was just to try to get into roller derby hockey. Do you think the Jets are better prepared, for games that are that might be like that this season? Or do you think that's was such an anomaly last year that it's hard to sort of, you don't want to, change your approach simply because of that one playoff series that was almost so outside the box of normalcy that it would be foolhardy to try and change what you do so well?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no look. First of all, it's not a regular season thing. You just can't play that style for 82 games. It's just unsustainable. And to be honest with you, I think it was almost unsustainable for both teams by the end of that series, anyways, as we saw by how much it took out of both teams. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you have to be aware, Drew. I think you have to be aware that the playoffs are a different animal. I think you have to be prepared to, as Sean talked about, not Sean, you talked about it, the idea that, if your defensive model is getting exposed, well, then you need to be able to adjust to that. The physicality element of things, obviously, yes, you want to be able to handle yourself, but not every team that's won the Stanley Cup is the most physical team. They have elements of that. There's no question about it. They protect the net like nobody's business, and we saw that with the Vegas Golden Knights when they won, the way their defense was built and how they protected the front of the net. So it didn't matter
if they had on their back end.
Well, yeah, and it didn't matter if they had an all-world goaltender or just league average goaltending. I mean, they were able to kind of protect that front of the net, and not really allow things to get through, or just not allow guys to set up shop. So, I mean, it's a curious one, though, Drew, in terms of whether they'll have to insulate themselves a little bit. I think they've learned a lot from what that St. Louis series was all about. But, when you hear guys who have been in hockey, and everyone here in the chat and us, we've been watching hockey our whole lives. When you can watch a series and say, you haven't seen a series like that in 15, 20 years, if not more, I mean, I don't think it's going to become the norm, and mostly because neither team got past the second round, right? So you played that style. That was great, but what did it do for you? Because you almost with it's almost like, if you remember, and I know all Jets fans will, in 17-18, that Nashville series took everything out of Winnipeg and Nashville. And the Jets didn't have a lot left. I know they beat Vegas in that first game, but they did not have a lot left in the tank after that Nashville series. So, yeah, you have to gird yourself against the type of hockey that you're playing, but also you have to leave something left in the tank to keep on playing hockey, right? It's not going to do you much good if we got through one round, but now we don't have anything left for round two, or we got through round two, now we have nothing left for round three. So,
well, and I think the difference between the Jets and the Blues last year, I mean, not to go back to a series that happened 5 months ago, but right. I think St. Louis knew that even if they got through that that first round against the Jets, their ceiling was the second round. They didn't have a team that was equipped to go any further. So they knew that, they can leave it all on the ice in that first round. And because, we've accomplished something just getting past that first round, nobody expected us to get to this point. So we can give it all, because even if they had an easier first round matchup, the second round they were not going to get past the second round, no matter who they were going to play against. So that it's almost like that first round was their Stanley Cup final in some regards.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think I think that the cautionary tale is it was exciting. It was a phenomenal series to watch and to cover, and to be that every game watching it live was incredible. But especially, that Game 7, you'll never forget something like that if you were there.
Still get chills by it. I mean, I'm cold and dead inside.
Yeah.
But when I see those highlights, they still come through your algorithm. They still come through.
Yeah, of course.
And you still get chills about it.
Oh, Like I'm telling you, like I'm sitting in the press box and I'm watching and I'm talking to Connor Rapchak because I'm like, okay, well, we're already kind of anticipating. Well, I guess we got to think about this and think about this, you know, in terms of exit meetings and that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, then Nemestikov scores. You're like, okay, well, hold on, you got a little time left. And then, I mean, there's no question about it, Drew. It's like anything. It'll be like the folks that were there to see. That were there to see Solani break Bossy's record, the folks that were in the building for the final Jets game ever in '96. There will be 50,000 people that were at that game live, so everyone will remember it. But it just comes down to, it was exciting hockey for media and fans to watch, but it wasn't, I don't think, sustainable. So I don't know that you would say, well, that's the style we have to play, because I don't think St. Louis, to your point, would have had anything left to take on Dallas, and the Jets barely did. And so, you know, and they forced it to game 6, but it's not, I don't think, a sustainable way to play in the playoffs.
Okay, let's move away from that. Go to the defense for the Jets, because we haven't really touched on it yet on this Saturday morning edition. Like I said, we're 10 days into training camp, whatever exactly the total is. Has anything changed in your mind when it comes to the back end of the Winnipeg Jets? You know, Elias Salomonsson was supposed to play last night in Edmonton. Under the weather. He's ill, not playing tonight. I don't know if he was ever scheduled to. Unlikely that he was, given that he was going to play in Edmonton. But
I mean, I guess in theory they could have changed things up and
if he recovered in time. But there's clearly no urgency to it. Has anything changed on the back end when it comes to the 8 defensemen that the Winnipeg Jets seem to have at the NHL level? That doesn't include Ville Heinola. You got Pionk and Morrissey, Sandberg and DeMello, Schenn and Miller, Stanley and Fleury. Has anything really changed in your mind with regard to the allotment of those 8?
I'm very impressed by Kale Clegg. I have to say, like, he's an interesting player. Not big by any stretch of the imagination, but he's got some good hockey sense. So, I like the way he plays. I mean, I think he'll be a perfect pairing. I think he'll be probably the top pairing partner to Elias Salomonsson with the Manitoba Moose, because I don't think he's done enough to necessarily overtake any of the guys you just mentioned, Drew. But in terms of guys I wasn't really super familiar with, I liked his game so far. But look, I don't think Scott Arniel told us, and I don't know that we were necessarily aware of it, but he told us. Why are you laughing?
It's a good try. I like how you sort of phrase that. He told us, but we didn't really put the pieces together.
Well, no, but it's just, I don't remember exactly when he indicated it in one of our media availabilities, but he essentially said that Ville was dealing with injuries more than just the ankle from the beginning of this. I think he said there was a shoulder situation he dealt with. So he obviously wasn't healthy last year.
It was almost like another lost season after the broken foot lost season, the broken ankle lost season.
Exactly. So you've got a player who, again, there is an upside to him. I mean, like, nobody's going to say that Logan Stanley has more upside than Ville Heinola, aside from, the fact that he's 6'7", which is all well and good.
And
but
you can't
if you don't
teach that.
You cannot teach that. But the fact is, Ville Heinola is 24 years old. I mean, he's still, he's not a prospect, obviously, by this stretch. But I mean, Murat wrote a good article just talking about a guy who at 18 years of age in 2019, when he was drafted by the Winnipeg Jets, kind of came out of nowhere and had a pretty good rookie season. And the problem for him is that for him to have supplanted someone like Fleury, Schenn, or Miller, he had to have an exceptional training camp. Now, it's not over by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it's there. I don't think we've seen it yet. So while I think that Heinola has more upside than Stanley, I don't think there's a question of that. I just think and we saw it even with his passing yesterday. Like, he did make some good outlet passes, which is what he does, right? That's again, we talk about, play to your strengths. Well, making a good first pass is a strength of his. And then we saw that in the game against the Oilers yesterday. But the fact of the matter is, he didn't stand out. It wasn't like he was exceptional in the game. And I'm not going to pillory a guy for one game, but I just think that it just seems like the writing is on the wall. Now, I've had some folks seem to indicate to me, I would think that a team would take a flyer on him and say, let's give this guy a whirl. And if he works out, great. And if not, we'll throw him back to the minors and someone else can pick him up. So I would think he'd get claimed on waivers. I've had some folks tell me they don't think he gets claimed on waivers. So, I mean, I think it's established. I don't think Colin Miller's going anywhere, because I think, to the point Sean made, Miller and Schenn, I think, are going to be your right side platoon. And I mean, Colin Miller's a guy we don't really talk about a lot. I don't even understand how he's not the main guy, with Schenn kind of coming in more often, because I think Miller's is a better defenseman, quite frankly, than Luke Schenn.
Every time the Jets, I would agree with you. You know, he's a very stable defenseman back there. And it seems like the Jets are constantly looking for something more than what he gives, which to me is been a surprise for the last couple of years. I'm like, what more do you want from the guy? He just goes out there, he does his job, he's no maintenance.
Yeah.
But they're always looking for whatever reason, they seem to think that that's an area that they can upgrade on. Now, I'm on record as saying, to your point, look, if your third pairing is a platoon of those four guys, of Miller and Schenn and Fleury and Stanley, and whoever's got the hot hand gets to stay in the lineup, and whoever's looking like they need a rest gets bumped out, I'm okay with that. I don't think that there's a problem with, cycling through, a third pairing of four different NHL level, not great NHLers, but NHL level third
it's
pairing.
Sufficient for third pairing. Let's put it that
sufficient
way.
for third pairing. I mean, I'm okay with that as a concept. I like that better than one guy gets that job when they don't necessarily deserve it for all 82 games.
Yeah, no, I'm of the same mind. I would think that, and again, I understand what folks are saying in terms of Stanley, and the Jets gave him a lot of runway last year. He played a lot of games. Like, what did he play? 56 games last year. So something in that realm. So it wasn't that he didn't get, like, the one thing we talked about last year, because folks were asking the question, it was like, okay,
63, even more.
So there you go. He's played 63 games, because it was more a function of like, okay, see what you've got. Let him play a lot of games and see what you've got in him, because of injuries have curtailed that opportunity for him. Mm-hmm. But you've seen it. Like, you've seen it. And it's not really a question mark. He's a known entity, I guess, is what I would say. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like, a third pairing is a third pairing. Now, the bigger concern, Drew, is, as we saw with Dylan Samberg going down when he broke his foot on the Steven Stamkos shot, what happens when you lose a guy like Samberg and you have to try and thereafter put a guy like Fleury, who is being asked to do a little bit too much? Like, that's where, like, the third pairing depth, again, people can lose their mind over Heinola versus Stanley. But, to me, actually, Heinola probably has more ability to go into that second pairing unit and skate and play well.
But I think every team has that situation where I don't think
No, that's true. It's true.
I think every team, if you lose a top four defenseman, it's not like you have a built-in top four defenseman playing on your third pair.
No, for sure. That's true. But I mean, I guess that's a good point. But I think it's just ultimately, I think that's just the way the Jets are going to do it. They're a bit of a risk-averse team, so they probably won't want to lose anyone to waivers. But the other factor, as I said as I prefaced my question with Sean, is we don't know what's going to happen 3 more games and 10 more days of training camp. So if in fact, they come through it clean, then Kevin Cheveldayoff and his management team are going to have to figure out a way to try and slide someone through waivers potentially. I saw The Athletic thought that Logan Stanley would be the guy on waivers. I think that there's not Murat, I should be clear about. I think it was Pronman. I think there's a 0% chance the Jets put him on waivers. I could be wrong. I just don't see it, because they invested so much time and energy into this player. So I would be shocked if that's the case.
I would be shocked if that's the case as well. I mean, I saw that article and I certainly raised both of my, with all due respect to our friends at The Athletic, again, not Murat, but sometimes they feel, even though they seem to think that they have to fill newspaper columns worth of page with articles that don't make a lot of sense. This was an example of people who don't know the Winnipeg market and the Winnipeg Jets organization talking about Winnipeg Jets players without actually consulting with the local market. They could have just picked up the phone, texted Murat, and said, "Hey, do you think there's a chance that Stanley is getting put on waivers?" And I think that would have been kiboshed real quickly as a talking point. I just don't see the Winnipeg Jets doing that. To your point, if they were going to end their relationship with Logan Stanley, I think that would have happened a couple of years ago at this point in time. And I've even, and I'm not a lover by any stretch of the game that Logan Stanley brings, and I think the Jets probably could have cut bait on that a couple of years ago. But I mean, I think it's evident that in small doses, I can live with what he brings sometimes, but I can really live with it if there's somebody to backfill as a replacement when and if he's struggling. That to me was the big problem when he was almost, you watch more of him and you see him getting exposed. You watch him in small pieces. Maybe he can have 2 or 3 good games in a row, then he gets exposed for a couple games. Maybe if you can sort of head off that exposure before it becomes too apparent, then there's maybe a little bit more. It's a little bit more palatable having him in your lineup as a regular option. That's my perspective of that.
Yeah, and ultimately, when you have four guys, there's again 4 guys for 2 spots. We're not talking about these guys for the top pairing roles. No, and again, Elias Salamonson is the great unknown if he's going to be ready to take that jump. And that's that. And Dylan DeMello, remember, Dylan DeMello critiqued his own game. Dean Chenoweth talked about his game last year. It wasn't necessarily up to par for him. So I would expect Dylan DeMello to have a bounce back season from what we saw last year, because it was a little uncharacteristic at times for number 2. So we'll see what kind of year he's able to put out.
And the Jets truly, they need DeMello to have they need him to be solid this year, because the assumption being that Salamonson should then be able to begin to ease into that role that everyone expects him to sort of play on a longer term basis. Now, DeMello still has 2 years left on his deal after this season. So, that the machinations of that will have to get worked on and everything else. But that seems to be, of course, that's what we all assume is going to be the game plan, is that Salamonson eventually steps in to play that role alongside Josh Morrissey.
Ooh, I have him paired as a second pairing guy. I mean, I'm not, believe
who else is taking that on that role then?
Well, again, to me, it's a function of a trade. You have to acquire a top pairing right side guy. Easier said than done. You have to spend some assets to do it. Yeah. But I've been saying that for years. I said, can you imagine right now if you push Pionk and DeMello down in some capacity and you have a top pairing right side guy alongside Josh Morrissey? Now there's a defense you're talking about.
Yeah, of course, and that's something that's been I mean, agreed.
I'm not unique for the record in that perspective.
No, you're not. Agreed. Unlikely to happen. There's been no evidence that that's on the horizon anytime soon, but time will tell on that front. Time will also tell if Craig Button is joining us. He's set to do so basically right about now. So I'll tell you what, we'll go to break. Hopefully Craig is going to join us on the other side. More Jets talk to come. If Craig isn't able to join us for whatever reason, it'll just be me and Manuk, the 2 M's, M&M, continuing you on this Saturday morning with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
25 minutes before the top of the hour, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on this Saturday morning. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk with you. Want to make mention, again, I'm not a rugby guy. I don't really know much about rugby, but I am a Canadian, and I'm a proud Canadian. The Canadian women are playing for the Rugby World Cup right now. That is taking place on the TSN channels 1 and 4. So, of course, you're still going to have to watch us, at least for the next 26 minutes or so. But then you can also tune in to the Rugby World Cup final. Canada playing right now, that game underway. So that's something very exciting. They're playing England in the final of the Rugby World Cup. So we cheer on our Canadian women and this very impressive accomplishment as they look for rugby world supremacy. Again, not much of a rugby guy, but hey, world championship is a world championship, right, Dave?
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Craig Button, hopefully set to join us. We'll see on that along those lines. Looks like, according to our buddy Connor Hrabchuk, Adam Lowry, he's continuing to skate. He's on the other rink this morning at Hockey for All Center, as well as Kieran Walton, who has suffered that concussion at whatever that Prospects tournament in Montreal was called.
Showdown.
The Prospect Showdown. I like it.
Yeah.
So he's working his way back.
Or Showcase. I think it's Showdown, but I think I was calling it Showcase. Either way.
Showcase, Showdown. Chris is right a little bit. Bad timing. Really unfortunate for Kieran Walton. That's going to certainly that impacted his opportunity to make an impact at Jets training camp. Not that anyone had him geared necessarily to that line, but the opportunity to be able to skate with all those NHL players, and he sort of has lost out a little bit on that due to that concussion situation. That
just for further clarity, he was asked about yesterday. Scott O'Neill was asked about him, and he essentially said that he was doing a little more physical activity, but essentially he failed his concussion test, so he remains in protocol. Although good sign that he's skating with Lowry in their sort of IR skate, and we'll see if he. I mean, really, all he's trying to do is pass so he can get on a plane and go back to Sudbury and play with the Wolves. So that is where he will be heading off to.
That's the long and the short of it. I would agree with you in that frame. The fourth line for the Winnipeg Jets. I mentioned Morgan Barron earlier when we were talking to Sean Reynolds, and I sort of jumped out at me, as I was doing the research for the show, that Barron's point totals have actually diminished the last couple of years, which is sort of I don't know if that's not funny in the ha-ha sense of the word, but it's sort of surprising to me because this is a guy that I think a lot of people think still has greater upside. He's got great possession numbers. His possession numbers are solid, so that certainly is an important aspect for the Winnipeg Jets, but his raw point totals have diminished. Tanner Pearson, Cole Koepke, are we maybe seeing a similar situation to the Jets bottom pairing of their defense, in that if Pearson or Koepke are struggling, if they maybe don't have it going for whatever situation, that's when you're going to see sort of the immediate dividends of having those additional depth forwards being able to step in. Guys like, depending on how many, forwards they have up in the press box, of course, and how big their roster is going to be at the start of the season. Guys like, Jared Anderson-Dolan, guys like David Gustafsson. It seems like Pearson and Koepke are being given that job, next to Morgan Barron, at least at this point. But I think it certainly is incumbent on them to keep it because there's plenty of opportunity and plenty of competition right behind them if they struggle at any point in time.
Yeah, I think the key to me is that nobody has a job. I mean, with the exception of a Morgan Barron, Drew, but all of these additional guys that you just mentioned, Jared Anderson-Dolan, again, it's interesting, right? We tend to think of Gustafsson as the 13th forward. Sure. Last year, Gustafsson was in the lineup, we expected, and Anderson-Dolan was going to be the 13th forward. 2 years before that, Parker Ford was supposed to be the 13th forward. So we tend to kind of look at that and think, okay, and remember, so much of this is predicated on the idea that everyone gets through training camp healthy, which is always a big if, as you mentioned, the Florida Panthers are now looking at. So this may be a moot point because we may be talking about this, and if they have 2 injuries, then guys have somewhat more guaranteed roles. It's kind of like Adam Lowry being out of the lineup for at least a month. There's going to allow one extra forward not to have to go through waivers and not to have to go down to the Moose. Mm-hmm. So That's good in that regard. But yeah, I don't think there's like, sure, they brought Tanner Pearson, and Tanner Pearson's got a very good shot. There seems to be a.
Well, let me ask you this: has he done enough to earn that job?
Honestly, like I'm not going to say like I watched a guy play a preseason game and he didn't have it, so therefore he doesn't. Because again, preseason right now, early preseason is very hard to judge based on what we're watching. Sure. So I will watch him in the latter preseason games against other NHL bona fide NHL talent, and then I can make a more accurate assessment as to how I see him playing out. And if not, maybe Tanner Pearson ends up being your 13th forward. And, a guy like Gustafsson ends up being in more regularly in the lineup. But it's very hard for me to say unequivocally yes or no, just because, like I said, it's very scrambly. It's not clean hockey. And so, again, whether it's, as you said, Drew, Cole Koepke or Jared Anderson-Dolan, like all of these guys know that it's kind of like the battle for defense. Like there are we know the top four is established. So there's no point in even having a conversation about the top four.
Right.
Really, it's 5 guys, let's say, fighting for 2 spots. Well, in this instance, there are, 4 or 5 guys fighting for essentially 2 spots, right? Because we know that as you mentioned, the Morgan Barron is not going to, Morgan Barron's going to be in the lineup at center. And so, yeah, the wing positions on the 4th line, but that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to have competition, because through that competition, you're going to establish, and that's why I said I don't think it's Tanner Pearson's job right now. I think it's in pencil maybe, but not in pen. And I think that you're going to watch over the course of the next 10 days, especially when we see the preseason games, but also what we're seeing in training camp.
Right.
And that will kind of determine who kind of slots where in the depth chart.
Because the truth of the matter is, we're a week away from the end of training camp. By next Saturday, training camp has concluded.
Mm-hmm.
And the last, the days from the 5th of October through the 9th of October are spent gearing up for that game against the Dallas Stars. I mean, that's where, your battles or your last week to win or lose a job is next week, just for the start of the season, by and large. That's usually when the decisions have been made. The roster has been cut. I mean, I think the Moose sent out an email yesterday saying they're talking about their training camp
starts
roster
on Monday.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, you're beginning to see, training camp quickly at the NHL level come to an end. And the Moose, they're going to be playing a preseason game. There's an intra-squad game. They're going to be playing in Steinbach. I think I saw at the new arena they have there in Steinbach. So that's coming up. So the Moose roster is going to need to be filled out.
Steinbach or Brandon?
I thought it was in Steinbach.
The Moose are going to Brandon to play. I thought a game in Brandon, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, I mean, in any event, I could be right. Maybe they're going somewhere. We know that. But my point is
that new rink in Steinbach apparently is incredible.
That's what I hear. And T. Konopoli is saying it's Steinbach. So thank you. I'm right.
Oh,
I'll take that one.
Correct.
The point is that you're down to your last week to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
You're down to your last week to really get things, to make your impression and win a job. And speaking of which, I'm going to stop right there because we're going to welcome to the program our good friend Craig Button. He joins us now on the program, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Craig, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, sorry, I was watching the women's rugby, and I'm just sitting there kind of watching it go back, and I go, "Whoa, I got to get on Legal Curve." So sorry, I wasn't fiddling. Canada isn't doing so well against England, but that's what I was doing. So
yeah, we were talking about that about 10 minutes ago. We were telling people that they can multitask. They can watch us on their phone or on their tablet and watch the Canadian women rugby match, the gold medal match. It's just going to make for a better story when they come from behind and they win gold against England, right? And I think that's what we're all anticipating happening. I don't know anything about rugby at all.
That has to be the story now because they'll have to come from behind to win. And I mean, they've had some opportunities and they haven't been able to push the ball into a try. So, we'll see what they can do in the second half. But England looks pretty strong right now.
There you go. So, okay, Craig Button knows hockey. He knows rugby. He knows pickleball. He knows all sorts of different sports altogether. Craig, we're sitting here and we were talking about, we're really, a week away from the end of training camps and the start of everybody gearing up for their season opening. For players, you've been around this game for so long. You've been in dressing rooms, in management positions. Are we into the part of training camp that really is the grind at this point in time, where guys who, they're ready to sort of take that next step and get ready for the start of the season? Or are they still sort of fine-tuning things at this point?
Yeah, the players are, they're in great shape 12 months of the year. Like
right.
they know how to give their bodies a rest. They know how to ramp it up, and they've been doing it since they were young. So, training camp used to serve a real significant purpose. It used to, allow the players to get to a level of fitness. I'm talking about game fitness. I'm not talking about off-ice fitness. I'm talking about game fitness. But now the players work on all these different elements in the off season. They're working on the fine tuning of their game. I think that, next year we're only going to have 4 exhibition games, preseason games. The veterans can only play in 2, at a maximum of 2. And the players like that. The players now reach that point where, okay, what do I got to do to get myself ready for opening night and for the beginning of the season? They're in a space now where physically they just need some reps. I think the most important position for training camp these days is goaltending. I think that the goaltender's trying to find a feel for because their game is so technical, and I think that they're the ones that benefit the most from preseason. The rest of the players, they just want to get the season on. They know the intensity that's going to ensue once the puck drops at the beginning of the season, and they're ready for it. They just want to make sure they get there 100% or as close to 100% as possible. They don't want to have any injuries or anything like that. So I think there was a time when there was a grind. I think now it's just like, okay, what do I need to be ready come opening night? And I think the players all have a real good feel of it. I think that the coaches have a really good feel of it. And all you got to do is look at the lineups of different teams and what they've been doing, including the Winnipeg Jets, and who they're dressing and who hasn't dressed probably is a more important one to look at.
Well, to that point, Connor Hellebuyck hasn't dressed yet for a preseason game. This is the 4th preseason game tonight. He's still not going to be in the lineup. Clearly at this point, they work with Connor. Connor and Wade Flaherty and the coaching staff, they're all on the same page when it comes to preparation. Is this just sort of Connor saying, look, I need 1 game, I need 1 period, I need half a game, I need 2 periods, whatever it's going to take for him to be ready for that first opening game against the Dallas Stars?
Yeah, you have to listen to everybody's working in collaboration, and you got to listen to Connor and what he needs. He knows what he needs. This is not a 21-year-old player. This is a player with lots of experience under his belt. He's been elite in his performance as a goaltender in the National Hockey League. If you're not going to listen to Connor Hellebuyck and try to understand what he needs and follow his direction, then I think that then you're not really in a position to help him. And I think by listening to him, you're helping him. And Connor knows. And not every player is in that same boat as Connor Hellebuyck. And I'm talking about goaltenders, but I think Connor unquestionably knows what he's going to need to do once the season begins, and obviously through the season.
Craig, one player who would like to play all 6, or would have liked to have played all 6 training camp games, the exhibition games, was Jonathan Toews, as Scott Arniel told us the other day. And while obviously he's not going to do that, we've seen him play in the one, and he was his harshest critic, as you would expect for a guy who's that elite. But what did you see in his kind of first game on the ice? And again, just from your perspective, as someone who knows the player, the impact, because I was at the Hockey for All Center the other day. We had finished the players had finished the formal part of skate. We were heading into the room to do media, and there he is on the ice with Braden Yager, working with him, 10, 15 minutes on faceoffs. And I just think from that perspective, it's such a huge, impactful position for the Jets to have a player like him helping young guys like that.
Yeah, I'll get in a minute, Dave. I'll get into the Toews effect on the team and the individuals. With respect to Jonathan has high standards, and so it should come as no surprise that he might be a little bit harder on himself. And he hasn't played for 2 seasons, and I think that everybody outside of Jonathan Toews and the people close to John, just remind them that, hey, you're moving in the right direction. You're in a space that maybe you didn't think you were going to be able to get back to. I think that nerves played a big part in his first game as much as anything, and he acknowledged that. And you're coming back. You're trying to get a feel for things, the speed of the game. It's all new teammates. He talked about coming into the room and just trying to be comfortable with everybody. He's not trying to. I mean, Jonathan has been a fantastic leader over the course of his career. He's finding different ways to be a leader now in a new environment. As you grow as a leader in one team with the Chicago Blackhawks like he did, you grow and you grow and you grow, and everybody's growing along with you. Well, now he's removed from that. Now he's got to grow as a leader in a different way. And that leads me into the impact he's going to have. Dave, just what you saw on the ice. There are so many things we are not going to see that nobody's going to see where Jonathan Toews is going to have an influence. There is nobody, and when I say nobody, in the Winnipeg Jets organization, ownership, management, players, anybody, equipment managers, trainers, that when Jonathan Toews speaks, that they're not going to have their ears perked up, ready to listen. Whatever it is, hey, relax, be calm. Hey, Braden, come on out. We'll work on faceoffs. Hey, Cole Perfetti, there was times on the bench the other day in his first game, we had a couple of visuals of him just talking to Perfetti, standing up on the bench, trying to direct, like say, hey, here's what we got to do. Like, maybe we should have the Toews camera to just show everybody the influence he's going to have when he's not on the ice, because that influence to me is going to be profound. And Jonathan is no shrinking violet. He's not a shrinking violet when he plays. He's not a shrinking violet as a person, and he's not a shrinking violet as a leader. And as he becomes more and more comfortable with his approach and with his voice, and everybody gets comfortable with him, I think that what Jonathan Toews is going to be able to contribute to the Winnipeg Jets in so many ways is going to be tremendous. And I'll finish with this. Jonathan Toews looked at the Winnipeg Jets not just as his hometown team to play it out. He knows the Winnipeg Jets are a contender. He knows the Jets are a very good team. He said that. He wants to come in here and help them win. If he didn't see them as having a chance to win, Jonathan Toews wouldn't be here.
Craig Button, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. Craig, you look at the Jets, or people look at the Jets and they say, well, they don't have that top-end speed. You lose Nikolai Ehlers. Maybe they're not as talented as they were last year on paper. I'm of the opinion that what the Jets have, probably more than almost any other team in the league, is a high hockey IQ. That the intelligence of the players that they're going to have on the ice is going to be one of the best, throughout the entire NHL. How much value is there in high hockey IQ? How many wins can you get, strictly by being smarter on the ice than some of your opponents who might be faster, who might have more raw skill or things of that nature?
I'm going to make 2 comments here, Drew. The first one is, and I believe, and you may have heard this adage, the first rule of winning is don't beat yourself.
Sure.
So, how do you not beat yourself? You don't beat yourself by being smart. How many times do we hear coaches talk about situational play, understanding what the situation is? Well, that's hockey IQ. That's IQ. That's understanding not only that you have a sense for the game, but you also have a sense of the situation. If you don't have players that are smart, you're going to have a harder time having success. And I can't begin to tell you how many times, and this is the second phrase that I'll use, how many times I see players just skate nowhere fast. Like they have no idea where they're going. Like it's not, the game isn't, like we all think that the game is played at Mach speed. It isn't. You speed up, you slow down, you shift, you move, you manage. And so I think that hockey IQ is thing. Rex, Buddy Ryan, the great football coach, and he had a saying. He said, I need players that are smart, and I need players that have courage and a will to fight. He said, because the player that isn't smart is going to hurt you, And the player that isn't competitive and isn't courageous is going to back down when the fight gets hard. And he said, and it always happens when in the most critical moments. So, like, I'll take a smaller player with a lot of fight and courage and will rather than a big guy that doesn't have it. And given a choice between a smart player and a dumb player or a player that lacks hockey sense, there is no player, there's never been a top player that has played any sport that wasn't smart, ever. And it's never going to happen. Can they play in a different role? Yeah, but if you're not smart, and coaches want to know what they're going to get when the players are on the ice. So when you say about hockey IQ and sense, and it's team sense, it's individual sense, and it's critically important. Listen, the Jets are a good team. They're one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. Every team is different from the end of last year. So let's just see how it plays out. Let's see how some of the new players fit in, and let's go from there. But there's no perfect team in the league, but the Jets are a very good team.
Well, Craig, if we're going to talk about smarts, I'm pretty sure the Jets from the OHL and the WHL have some scholastic players of the year. So Cole Perfetti, I think Adam Lowry was, Josh Morrissey, if I recall. But speaking of Cole Perfetti, because you talk about a smaller player who's got a brain, and we know he's got that, but it seems like he hit another level last year. And the big question for us on this show was, is he going to become a driver? We know that Nikolai Ehlers was a driver on that second line. Can Cole Perfetti get to that level? We saw it. Scott O'Neill talked about how good he was in the St. Louis series, said he had the most chances, didn't score until Game 7, kind of critical when he did. But the fact of the matter is, from your perspective, are you seeing that change over to that player who's can be a driver on the second line for the Winnipeg Jets?
You know, having watched Cole for as long as I've watched Cole, I mean, Cole isn't afraid to take a leading role in terms of being a driver, trying to be and to be a difference maker, because he has been that, and he doesn't shy away from it. I think that Cole has found a level of play in his career in the NHL now that gives you optimism that he can be a driver, that he can be a significant player in terms of turning the tide in the favor of the Winnipeg Jets. He's smart, he's competitive, he's skilled, and now he's got that. He doesn't just have some physical maturity behind him and underneath him. He also has that life experience of playing in the NHL. I say this often about players. Players come into the NHL, they're 18, or they're drafted, they're 18, they're 19, they're 20, they're 21. There's 3 different stages of maturity. There's physical maturity, there's mental maturity, there's emotional maturity. And the overwhelming vast majority of players, 18 to 21, 22, don't have all 3 of those things. And it takes a little bit of time. You got to be patient as those players understand what they can, what they can't do, what they need to do better. And I think Cole's at that point now. And that it speaks to how hard the NHL is. He's a top pick in the draft. You know, we all see early on in his career the flashes of skill and how good he can be. But I think he's ready now. And I think he's ready now because he's matured. And certainly there's certain players that come into the league and certainly defy that. They're mature beyond their years. Jonathan Toews was like that. Macklin Celebrini, Sidney Crosby. But it's rare for players to be young and to have all those elements of maturity all together. But when they do all come together and you are smart and you are skilled and you are competitive, now you can impact the game.
Craig, I know the second half of the rugby is set to start any minute now, so I'll let you go on this last question. Recency bias, of course, is a real thing, but do you ever remember a start to a season where this many grade A plus superstars are unrestricted free agents at season's end? And then the second part to that question, if you're the management crew of the teams that these pending UFA players play for, what's your mindset to the start of the year? What are you going through as you try and hopefully, presumably get these guys under contract and make them long-term options on your team?
Yeah, and no, I haven't. To answer your first question, no, I haven't. I haven't seen this level of player, and that includes Kyle Connor with the Winnipeg Jets. Right. And certainly, and Adam Lowry, I mean, who I feel along with Anton Lundell, the 2 ALs in the league, are the 2 best third-line centers in the National Hockey League. So it also applies to Adam Lowry in a different way too. Sure. But when I think about it, the cap's going up significantly, and it's going up significantly from last year to this year, next year, and then obviously when it's around 113 million, that's significant. And players now are looking at, okay, how do I maximize my opportunity with the team I'm with, and knowing that there's dollars out there, knowing that there's teams willing to spend dollars. So the teams that have these players, I think there's a little bit of angst. You don't replace these types of players, but other teams, the flip side of this, Drew, is the managers on the other side that are licking their chops, thinking about the possibility of these guys hitting the free market. Let me make my own personal statement. I love the fact that the players are sitting back and going, we're ready to wait. They're saying, let's see what this team does. Let's see what this management group does. Because it used to be that, you're going to go with a team and you're going to stay with them until they don't want you. Well, it's reversed a little bit now, because the players are looking at it and going, maybe I don't want to stay here if you're not going to show that you can put a team on the ice that can help us win and be successful. And the players now, I think, are a lot stronger in their conviction to say, you know what? We're going to explore outside options. We don't have to just take what's given to us, and what's given to them. Don't get me wrong. Like we saw Kaprizov turn down all that money. It's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
But if Kaprizov's main goal, he's going to get money. But if his goal is to win and he doesn't feel he can do it in Minnesota, why is he going to stay there? Then you're kind of defying what you're all about. So I'm very fascinated to see how it all plays out around the league.
It's going to be certainly an interesting subplot for all the teams in the entire NHL as the season gets underway, until and if these players do sign or wherever they end up. Craig Button is a great friend of the show. You're going to be on the Jets on TSN broadcast again this year, right?
Yep, I'll be in Winnipeg October 30th and November 1st. Hawks and Penguins.
There you go.
First game that Toews plays against the Hawks, and Sidney Crosby visiting Winnipeg. Always fun.
And Craig, most likely Adam Lowry's return to the lineup November 1st. So
is that what they're saying? Oh, that's good.
That's what they're pegging. If you ask him, he'll be back in mid-October. But the coaching staff are taking more of we want him to be healthy the whole year. So November 1st is what they've got him pegged for.
Let me just make this quick point, too, about good teams, too. Adam Lowry missed a significant part of the season last year. And I think good teams don't capsize when you lose good players. And Adam is a leader. He's an excellent player. But they showed how good they are in the absence of Adam Lowry. I don't think it'll be any different this year. You don't want to lose good players. But good teams don't capsize when players get hurt. And I think that speaks volumes about how good the Winnipeg Jets are.
Well, something to look forward to, Craig. We'll look forward to seeing you back in Winnipeg and joining us throughout the course of the year here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Thanks very much. Enjoy the second half of the rugby match, and we'll do it again real soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
There he goes. Craig Button, always one of our favorites, one of the best here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show and rugby show. I mean, I don't know, the illegal.
Well, we've been talking about rugby now for an hour, so sure,
might as well. It's not every day that we get to branch out and talk about other things. What's
an illegal thing in rugby?
I have no idea. An illegal scrum? I mean, I'm out of my element when it comes to rugby terminology, but I'm certain that one of our great chatters will be able to fill us in and educate us on what's going on in the world of rugby. I can see on my second screen that the second half is underway between Canada and England. That should wrap it up for us, Dave. 2 hours flew by, you and I. Who needs Ginsburg? Who needs Ginsburg? Who needs Benny? It's you and I are here. That's the key to this whole operation.
I don't disagree with you. And look, we got lots more to look forward to. Hopefully, like I said, the site will be expected to be back up. Hopefully today, worst case scenario tomorrow. And with it, we will have, of course, the YouTube channel, and the show should be available. I'm going to try and make sure that gets available at some point today. And then Moose training camp gets underway on Monday. I was wrong in my, I don't know why I thought Brandon.
Maybe I just saw. I knew. I'm the Moose insider. It's the Mendel Moose.
No, you know what you are? You're better. Your reading comprehension is a lot better. I mean, that's the problem. Journey for Beginners believes Ezzy is the leader of the show. Ezzy's the comedy genius of the show. Journey, I don't think I'd call him the leader though. He's more of a comedic.
Lead us right off the mountain.
Yeah,
like the lemmings.
Yeah.
Right off the mountain.
But no, I mean, look, the Moose coverage is going to kick up. We'll be, of course, having that on illegalcurve.com and on our YouTube channel. So make sure you. It's illegal to tackle in rugby Go figure. Oh, really? I don't understand. How do you bring the guy down then if you have the if you're
I thought it's illegal to hit them. Like I know that I thought you have to wrap them up. Like in football, you can just deliver a shoulder into somebody. I thought in rugby you have to. I know you can't deliver a shoulder. I thought you have to wrap them up.
I thought you were allowed to. I don't know. I've watched a little bit of rugby in my day, but anyways, well, we'll hopefully have that answer for everyone. But more importantly, we'll have lots of coverage of the Jets and the Moose on the website and of course on our YouTube channel. So make sure, as Drew is about to tell you, smash that like button.
Yes.
Make sure you're subscribing to this channel.
Yes.
And for the record, when you're watching the videos that we post every day from training camp, make sure you're liking the videos, share them, whatever you got to do on Facebook, on Instagram, on Threads, on Blue Sky, and everything else.
Well, and if you haven't yet done so, you have 56 minutes to enter our contest to win four tickets to the home openers. So jump on our Facebook page, jump on our Instagram page, look for the post regarding the giveaway courtesy of our friends at Play Now in conjunction with us at Illegal Curve. You have 55 minutes now left to enter, and we're going to draw a winner on Monday morning and be in touch with them accordingly. Big thanks to all the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the post-game show, the Saturday show, the website a possibility. Our friends, of course, at Play Now. They're the title sponsor. Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Holt Dental, City Place, Wheatland Hockey, and, of course, our friends at Boston Pizza.
And apparently Danny Zhilkin, according to Frosty at Winnipeg.
Danny Zhilkin's also a sponsor. Support these sponsors or the show moves to Kentucky. I'm not sure about that. That's what Frosty Winnipeg is saying in the chat, but I like that idea a little bit nonetheless. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate y'all. Smash the like button, subscribe, turn your notifications on, and we'll see everybody.
Sorry, one last thing. Happy belated 98th birthday to my Baba. Turned 98 this week. So my Baba Shirley, she joined my Zeta Sam. He would turn 98 in March. And my Baba Shirley joined him celebrating her 98th birthday this week. So happy birthday. I'd be remiss. I wish her happy birthday on her birthday. But I want to make sure that she gets the credit she deserves. When you turn 98, you need a little credit. So Baba Shirley turning 98 this past week. So many, many more for her.
Absolutely, from your lips to Lord Almighty's ears. Agreed with that one there, Dave M. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Get out there, enjoy it, do it safely. We'll see you back here next Saturday for another edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. For Dave Manouk, I am your host, Drew Mandel. If it's Saturday, folks, you know it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.